Perfect. I'm now recording. Thanks, Misty. I'll make sure I can send it to you afterwards so you have it as a resource as well. Um, so what I actually want to do, I'll just kind of briefly touch on this tab. As you guys know, this is going to be kind of that informational piece. I know some of you that I've been working with had not yet put in an overview of services. If you have something that you want to put there, feel free. Otherwise, you can delete that whole section if you don't want something there. So I just wanted to remind, I think there were 2 cores that I saw were still missing that section. For equipment, so to create reservations, I'm going to use the C spinner in our NanoFab section on this little demo core. We're going to click that View Schedule button over on the right-hand side. This is going to take us into that calendar interface. So we have the current day and time showing with that little red line you guys are used to seeing. And then to create a event, we're going to click and drag on our calendar. I'm going to use my test user, Claire Researcher. Oh, I thought I added her. Oh, you know what? I didn't. I apologize. I was using Penelope earlier. There we go. Okay, so we have those reservation details screen that shows that particular calendar we're scheduling on this instance 1 calendar. We have the person that we're creating this on behalf of. Again, your users won't have that option to create this event in someone else's name. It will only be making it for themselves. And we have some information about that person. So the phone number that she's provided and the lab that she's associated with. We have that event notes section where we can put in any note that pertains to that particular event, and we can make it visible to anyone or just to the event owner and the core staff. That time that we clicked and dragged on, if we maybe let go a little bit too early and we want to adjust that, we can click that little yellow pencil. We get a drop down here where we can adjust that time, or you can type it in if for any reason it's different than what those time steps are. I'm going to leave it at 1:15 though. And I'm going to click this little green check mark that says Save Changes. And you're going to see this Use and Cost of Reservation section updates. So now we have it displaying 9:45 to 1:15. And it calculates that total, that hourly cost and the duration. We do have a couple different availabilities on this particular calendar. So if we were a trained user on here and we want to schedule as a trained user, we don't need the assisted use. We can select that. And then we have that payment information section. Again, your internal users are going to get that drop down where they can select that account string or that cost center here to say they're paying for that use or paying for the use of this instrument with that account. This test user is external, so we can type in their number. In this test calendar, we also have a form attached on the right-hand side here, so we can go ahead and enter in some information. Maybe I want a green minivan. And then I'm going to click the Save Reservation button down in the bottom left. We're going to see that reservation shows up on our calendar here. We have that event note that we added, shows up in bold with the little warning icon to really grab our attention there. And there is that Legends and Help button on the right-hand side if you can't remember what those colors are for. So we can see this one is kind of in a turquoise, and that's because we created a reservation for someone else that is in the future. That orange that we see is a situation in which we've said we want to approve that particular event. So let's actually approve that guy. You can see it says pending approval by core. I'm going to double click on this event to get into that reservation details screen. And now in the bottom left, there is a save and approve button. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we're going to see that event updates. Now it's kind of in that pinkish color. And you'll see in the Legends and Help that pinkish is a future reservation that has been approved. So we're good to go, and that user can come and use it during that time. There are a couple of changes you can make on this interface to these reservations. So if I hover over the bottom of this event, I get those arrows, and I can click and drag to extend or shorten that event. Similar is if I hover over the time up at the top, I get that little hand. I can click and drag to move that to a different day or a different time. It does jump back for a second while it processes those changes, and then it'll save in the newly section. Okay, I'm going to click Return to Schedules up at the top here. It's going to take us back to our Schedule Equipment tab. And then you guys have kind of some extra buttons that we talked about in implementation. So if you need to take a resource offline, if for any reason this maybe is down and we know the exact day and time that the technician is going to come back, we can put that day and time in, click that little play button, and it'll automatically come back online at that time. Or if we don't know when the technician is going to come out, we can use the Until Further Notice button. It's going to change to Put Online. When your user comes to your core, they're going to see this as something you typically offer, but it will say offline, and they won't be able to go into that calendar interface to schedule. I'm going to put this back online. That opens it back up to those users. Then we also have those little hearts all the way to the right-hand side. So if you want to mark a particular resource as a favorite, you can easily pull those up on the Reservations tab, which we'll touch on in a second here. I'm going to go to this Request Services tab now. So if you guys remember, there's two sections here. There's the one up at the top. Oh, yep. Sorry, was there a question?
Yeah, very quick. It says put offline until. Can we also schedule something I want to take it offline tomorrow until the day after? Or the take offline button?
Sure. So if you wanted, here, let's go back into that calendar. There is that unavailable event type option.
Okay, but the take offline is only from right now until...
Correct. The take offline is only from this moment until either that day and time that you set it, or until you manually put it back online. If you knew that tomorrow, if you wanted it still available today, for example, and you knew that tomorrow should be blocked out, you can click and drag just like you're making a reservation. Maybe I only want this unavailable from 9:15 to 5:30. And instead of the event type reservation, you can select unavailable. When you click next, you're going to get a really simplified view of that reservation details screen. You'll notice you can still attach a form to this unavailable event if you need to. And then the event notes, you can say, you know, training, maybe this is staff training or maintenance, that kind of thing. When you save that, it will still block it out, but it'll be kind of in an angry red color, so they know this is 100% unavailable. Users won't be able to schedule during this time. Okay. So I'm going to click Return to Schedules, and I'm going to jump back to Request Services. All right, perfect. So the first section on this page are those project requests. So we have 3 in this testing core. The second section is basically that price list. So we can see all of the services that we offer, and we can see all of those pricings for the different price types. If I want to go ahead and initiate this, say project 2, I'm going to click that Initiate Request button over on the right-hand side. I'm in as an admin, so I'm doing this on behalf of my user, and I'm going to say I'm making a request for Penelope. Your users, when they're logged in, it will skip this step and it'll go straight into the form that they'll fill out. Okay. So the form here we have, if you remember, the little red stars indicate required fields, so your users will have to fill those out in order to submit this request. In this example, we have some kind of show if statements. So based off of what I select, we'll see a couple other things pop up. Okay. This particular test project request, we've also built in kind of some default services that are automatically applied. But you also have the option to add those services right next to that little green plus sign. So if I know I'm in here with Penelope talking about what she needs, and we determine, oh, she's also going to need 4 of service C, I can go ahead and add those. They will show up as a separate line item. I can still adjust the quantity from here. So if I've determined, you know, the more we hash out her project details, I get a better idea and I say, oh, you know what, actually, I think we'll probably only need 3 of service C. We can make those updates. That total price will change over here on the right-hand side. And then that cost section is going to generate that quote based off of those line items that you've added up above. Payment information, really similar to the reservations calendar we just came from. Again, your internal users will get that drop down of those valid accounts or cost centers. And I'll go ahead and click Submit Request to Researcher, which is automatically going to navigate us to the next tab, View All Requests. Okay. So we have, again, this is a queue of all of that work that's been submitted to the core. We have a status column that's going to give you a rundown of where we're at with each one of those projects. The one we just submitted for Penelope, since we did this on her behalf, it says waiting for researcher approval. She's going to get that email letting her know, and she'll be able to come into iLab and she'll have an agree or disagree button, and she can, agree that looks exactly like what we talked about. I'm ready to move forward with my project. This second one from Claire Researcher is one in which I went in as Claire and submitted to the core. So this is most likely what you guys are going to see, assuming you're not creating those on behalf of your users. This will allow us to look over those project details that she filled out, and then we can choose to agree if it's a feasible project, or if maybe she's confused with what we do and we're not going to be able to meet her needs of her project, we could disagree at that time. To view the project details, we're going to open up this using the little blue triangle all the way to the left. When I toggle that open, I'm going to be able to look at the form that we filled out, as well as those services that we added. Here we go. You can see all the radio buttons I clicked, kind of those fields that I filled out. Again, we have the opportunity to adjust the quantities here of those services that we've added, or add all new services. So right next to that little green plus sign, there's that add service link. I can pop in here and say I need one of service Z, and it adds a new line item just like it did in the previous screen. We have that comment section where you can either use this add comment link, or there is the little bubble icon all the way up at the top here, right next to the $sign. Both of these will do the exact same thing. They'll let you email that particular owner. We can choose to include their financial manager or their PI as well. And when we send that message, we're going to get a little pop-up that says we sent it. And now in that comment section, we're going to see that message that we sent with the time and date stamp. So we can keep a thread of all of those. There's also that attachment section. So if you guys have kind of documents while you're working on that data and you want to have those all housed in the same place, you can upload those here. And throughout the site, you're going to see those filters on the left-hand side. So you'll be able to pull up if we want to see a specific owner. Maybe we only want to see Penelope's work. We can select Penelope. We can click that Apply Filters button. Oops, I unselected her. Sorry about that. There we go. We can click that Apply Filters button, and it'll pull up just her specific projects. Okay. That Reservations tab. Now again, this tab is a little bit unique. This is one that we can turn on for your users to see. Most cores typically leave this as a core staff only tab, however, because this is only a view only tab. They cannot create any reservations from here. So depending on our discussions during your implementation, this might be a staff only tab, or we may have opened this up to users. You can select the calendars here on the right-hand side to see basically a bird's eye view of what's going on in your core. It does default to that 3-day view. You can see today's current day shows up in yellow with that little red line for the time, but you do have an option to see just a 1-day view or a full week if you want to see a weekly view. You can also choose to view your favorites here. So the one that we marked with that little red heart, it'll pull up any of those red hearts for you. And you can print a 24-hour view from this page as well. That People tab, this is the first one with that orange crown on top. Now remember, these guys are only accessible to core staff, so your users will never have access to these guys. This People tab is going to keep a running list of anyone that has or is working with your core, and you can send out bulk emails here. You can manage training if maybe I want to select what instruments Penelope's trained on. I can use that little microscope icon to make sure, oh, you know what, I don't want her scheduled on or trained on scheduled A. I can deselect that to remove her as a trained user there. Reporting we ran through together. Again, you guys have a lot of options as far as what data you pull up here, or if you want to export it out, email it, print it, you have all those options. And then actually billing I'm going to come back to because we're going to run through billing together. But finally, that administration tab where a bunch of those extra settings live. So if you wanted to add a new staff member to your core, you could add them to that members tab to give them staff access. Or if we wanted to go through our email settings, we could open up that other settings bar in orange to set those up. I'm going to go ahead and go to the equipment tab now. I'm going to change gears a little bit here and kind of go through a brief billing tutorial. So in order for any of our events on our calendars to show up on our billing event, we do have to confirm them first. There is a confirm usage button on this tab. I'm going to go into that little confirm usage button.
Sorry, I have a quick question.
Oh, sure.
Back on the calendar view.
On the, are you talking about the reservations tab or on the just the equipment?
Do you need to approve for the equipment to be able to see the calendar for all the machines, or will it just show everything in the lab?
I'm sorry, there's a little bit of echo, so I'm having a hard time hearing you. Will you say that again for me?
Yes. Is there are the users able to see every piece of equipment in the lab on that calendar? Or do they have to be approved for it to use?
Sure. So on
the reservations tab,
on the reservations, they would be able to see all the calendars. But again, it wouldn't let them actually schedule it. So if they're not trained on a calendar and then they go to the equipment tab, they're not going to be able to do anything. There's also a setting that determines whether or not they can see the owner to these events. So depending on how if your core has said, you know, no, I'm not comfortable with that, I wouldn't even, as a user, I couldn't log in and see, oh, Penelope owns this one and Andy owns this one. I would only be able to see, I own those and the other ones are just blocked out times.
All right, thanks.
My pleasure. Perfect. So I'm going to jump back to equipment and click on confirm usage. All right, so this interface is going to give me all of the past events that have occurred across your core. So you can see there are quite a few different resources listed here. If maybe you're only in charge of a couple of them, so maybe one of your staff handles the C-spinner and you handle the key site, you can use these filters on the right-hand side to only pull up those specific events. So maybe I only want to see the C-spinner. Okay. You can see specific details. If I want to use, say, Amos, I can click on his name, and this is going to bring up a pop-up that has all those different sections. So if I want to adjust the times, maybe for Amos on this one, I know he used the event, this machine, till 1:15 instead of 1. I can make those updates. You can also see a number of different things in this interface. The usage type, so he's got assisted use here. I can see the total cost of the event if I've added charges. And then when I do make any updates, so I adjusted his time, I can see that source has updated to say core edited. At that time, once I've looked over these, I'm all ready to go. I want to bill for all this. I can either individually confirm these, maybe if I only have one or two and I want to click that green confirm button, or there is the option to confirm all of them at once by selecting all of those guys and then clicking that blue confirm button. I'm going to do just a couple of these so we don't have a massive billing event. Once you click that confirm button, that status column will update to queued to indicate that it is processing those guys. You'll also notice up here there's a gray button that says unconfirmed reservations, and if we want to see all of the events that have been confirmed, we can select confirmed, and it's going to pop us over there and show us those are the 3 that we've marked as confirmed. I'm going to go ahead and click back to core in blue. So once we've confirmed all of our reservations and made sure they're good to go, our next step would be to go to the View All Requests tab and make sure we complete any services. So just like we have to confirm the usage, we have to complete services to get them to show up on our billing event. There are two ways that you can do this. I'm going to use this one for Claire and open her up using that blue arrow. The first way is if you have a long-standing project and you don't want to close this whole guide down. Maybe you're going to be working on it for 6 months, but you don't want to wait the full 6 months to be billed. What you can do is you can open up those details. You'll see those line items show up here, and all the way to the right-hand side, there are those process buttons. So maybe I'm ready to bill for this service A from service group 1, but I'm not ready to bill from service A from service group 2. So what I can do is click that process button. This is going to update the work status to indicate that we're currently working on this particular line. And that process button updates to say complete. When I click complete, it's going to update the work status to completed and the billing status to ready to bill. So now this particular line is going to show up on our billing event, but the second one is not. So that's the first way that you can mark services as completed. The second way is to complete the whole project. So for each one of these guys in this status column, oops, sorry about that, you can see there is a status in black and then a next step button of kind of in green. So this next step button in green, I'm going to go ahead and click that complete. That's going to do exactly what we did to that one line item a second ago, but it's going to do it across the board for any services that are attached. So in this guy, you can see now both of them are marked as ready to bill or completed. It does tell you up above how many services were attached to this project request and to indicate that you've completed 2 in this particular case. Okay, so now that we've confirmed our usage, we've completed our services, we're ready to move to our billing tab. So this billing tab is going to give us a history of all of our billing events. This is where you can come to access any past invoices if need be, or create those new billing events. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and take a look at this new billing event button with the little green plus sign. This is going to take us into a 3-step process. Okay, so this first step, this date will populate with the last day of the current month that you're in. So if you get behind in billing, maybe we haven't done June yet. If you select the end of June here, only the services that are completed and confirmed up until the end of June will populate on this billing event. I'm going to leave it at the end of August here because I am not sure how far back we have charges that go. The event name is going to be your core name with the current month that you're in. You can always come in here and add additional notes if there's something that you want to show up in the event name. Include. I typically recommend you leave the default on all. This is basically going to say if I want to run a billing event specifically for just internal users, or maybe I want one just for external users, you can do so. However, the reason I typically recommend leaving it on all is the system is automatically going to separate out those internal and external charges for you in your billing file. So it's kind of an extra step to create those separately. And then finally, the group by is how those invoices are going to be grouped. The most popular option is Lab and iLab. This will group them by PI, but there is the option to group them by researcher, request ID, or payment information. So I'm going to go ahead and click this Load Charges button now. This step 2 is going to pull up all of those charges that we marked as complete or as confirmed. We can see we do have kind of some payment information that we can see here. You might potentially see some red flags here if we don't have any payment number or payment method indicated. The little red flags would show up right next to ready to bill and status, and you can always update that information by clicking the little $ icon and then fixing that payment information. Another option that you have in iLab is to actually split those charges. So for example, on this charge for Claire, we're using 6789 to pay for this work. but maybe I don't have enough money in that fund, and so I only have enough to cover 60% of that particular fee. I can click that split charge button. It's going to calculate you need 40% more, and so I'm going to use my 1234 account to cover the rest of that. Once you save that, you're going to see that payment number column updates to indicate that we are splitting that charge and what percent we're splitting. There are those action buttons on the right-hand side here. So if for any reason you've gotten to this point and maybe you need to contact that user with a question. I've noticed that Claire picked 6789, but I thought she mentioned she wanted 1234. I can use that little communications bubble here to email her, just like we did. Oops, sorry about that. Did I make it too small? Can you guys still see it okay? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
That's good.
All right, perfect. Sorry about that. So you can use that little communications bubble to send that message. Those green arrows will allow you to forcibly exclude that charge out. So if I know, maybe we've gotten this far and for some reason Claire's account is no longer valid. I'm getting a little red flag and I know she's on vacation. I'm not going to be able to reach her for a while. I can forcibly exclude that charge out. And actually, Misty, I'm going to use yours. By clicking that little green arrow, it's going to open up that excluded charges section. You can see it shows up up at the top there. And so now when I run that billing event, this particular charge will not show up on that event. There is a little upward arrow pointing kind of back to the included charges section. So if you click that on accident, or maybe Claire, was on vacation, but she was checking her email. She got back to you really fast and told you what account number she needed. You could push it back in to get that charge back into your billing event. I'm going to toggle those excluded charges closed just to clean up the page a little bit. And this takes us to step 3. So we have an option to either go ahead and create it or to save it as a draft. So if you are maybe coming back to this, kind of doing those charges a little bit at a time, you can do that. I'm going to go ahead and click Create for this billing event. We're going to get navigated back to the Billing tab. And you can see up at the top here, our new billing event shows up. I can see I actually do have some billing errors on here, it looks like. There's some high-level information on this guy. So we have the total amount that this event includes, as well as the number of charges. And there are a couple of actions all the way to the right-hand side. So this summary link, I'm going to start with him. This summary link.
Hello?
Oh, can you still hear me? Did I lose you guys?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, you can still hear me? Okay, sorry.
Yes.
I thought someone said hello. It made me nervous that I had lost audio. So this first section, and actually this might be a little bit more of a cleaner interface since I implemented it with you guys. We've recently kind of updated the look of this particular portion. This will give you kind of a breakdown, we can see, of what's going on a high level. So again, 4 charges totaling in 156. I can see exactly when I started to create this billing event and when I ended that creation, as far as those charges. That group by, that invoice was grouped by lab. Those price types, I have a breakdown. We have kind of most of these we charge to the custom usage type. So this is more likely going to say internal versus external or internal versus academic. And then billing initialized, if you had marked any charges as not billable or as pro bono, it will give you a breakdown on what amount was normally billed versus those pro bono. This download files section is going to be very, very important. So once you guys run your first billing event, there is going to be a little link here that says send file to PSU. And that, when you click that, it's going to send those billing files straight through to your financial system. It's a very important step because if you create your billing event and don't actually send that information through, you're not going to get paid for your work. So you do have some flexibility on when you send that through. If you like to maybe create your billing event and send out your invoices and give those users 24 hours to look everything over, you could come back into this summary page 24 hours from now and click that button. Or if you like to do everything immediately, so maybe you create those, you send the invoices out, and then boom, you click that Send to PSU button. That's fine as well. As long as you're clicking that button, it really just is important you're doing that step. So we saw on the billing on the billing guy tab that we had some billing errors, and we're actually seeing those show up here on this little guy. We're indicating we've got a couple of problems here, and it will bring up those guys, and we can actually revalidate them here. You can either do it on this billing events tab, or you can do it from the invoices tab, which I'm actually going to leave those so we can take a look at what those are going to look like on the invoices. And we'll go ahead and solve those right from the invoice. That invoices link that you guys saw on the billing tab is also going to take you directly into this little invoices tab. So whether you go right from that summary page or you go directly from the billing tab, either way will take you to the same spot. This first section is going to give you the option to bulk email out those invoices. There is the option to put in a custom message using that prepend custom message to invoice emails little checkbox. So if maybe your price has changed and you want people to, you don't want to get a flood of emails, you can put in that message, please be aware this is the first month of our price change. Please pay special attention to your invoices, that kind of thing. And then you could click that Send Invoices button to send those out. We're going to see our actual invoices show up down here in our invoice list. There are a couple of icons all the way to the right-hand side here. We have a comments bubble to add a comment to our invoice. We can individually email this guy out. The email that your users will get, it's going to have a PDF of the invoice, and it's going to have a link directly to their invoice in iLab. There is a little preview guy, which we'll look at in a second, a option for us to download that PDF of the invoice. And then this last guy with the dots and the lines, I'm going to go ahead and click on him. He's going to open up this Invoice Details section down below that's going to tell us all of the charges that are on that particular invoice. So we can see that what's included without having to ever go into the invoice. I do want to look at the preview for this one, so I'm going to go ahead and click that little magnifying glass. Our invoice is going to open up in a new browser tab here. Perfect. And we have kind of some information on what we've done. We can see exactly what project request this particular charge was associated with. We can see what the charge was, when it was added. There is that little $ icon here on the right-hand side. So if you need to update any of that payment information from here, you can, or split a charge from here, just like we looked at before. We can say, and this guy looks like we don't have any payment information for. Maybe we want to say 50% is going to go to 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to put another 50 to 5, 6, 7, 8. These invoices are live, so if you change this payment information here, as long as you have not clicked that Send to PSU button yet, it will update that payment information on the billing file that gets sent to your financial system. Okay. And then we have a notes section down at the bottom. So if we wanted to add notes for the core or for the customer, we have kind of that little yellow pencil you can click on. It gives you this text box. We can put in our message, and we can save that guy, and it'll add that note to the bottom of our invoice here. I'm going to go back to my previous browser tab where we were in the Invoices section, and I'm going to click on Return to Core. This is going to take us back to our Billing tab. Okay. On this tab, there are filters or a search. So if you know what, I put test in or I put a specific word in the name so I could easily pull up that billing event. You can use those filters to pull that up. You can also change the name of your billing event directly from here. So when I click on that guy, maybe I want to add ABC to the end. I can save that billing event name. Oh, and then I believe I have to refresh the screen for that to show up. There we go. The last thing that I like to mention on this page are the little red X's. You will only see these guys until you click Send to PSU. This red X will delete the billing event, and any of the charges that are attached to it, it's going to send them back into a status of ready to bill, so that the next time you click on that new billing event button, you're going to see those charges show up so you can bill for them. Once you click that Send to Penn State button, essentially we're taking away this red X to make sure that we don't accidentally double bill for those charges. So they're in that billing event. We've sent them through to get our money, and we don't want them to pop in the next time that we try and create a new billing event. Okay. Any questions on either workflow or billing or anything in general?
Nothing in this room. I'm not sure about those online.
Okay. I want to show you kind of just one last thing before I let you guys go. This is something that you should have all seen on your final meeting during your implementation. But as a reminder, I do want to point out this little help link up at the top right. This has the link to iLab's help site. So if there is maybe something that you want to review that we went through today, maybe you want to take a look at billing, you can go down to the core facility staff section. That's going to have those different articles that you can pull up. So maybe, how do I bill for completed work? It's going to have screenshots and steps on how you're actually going to do those particular actions. So I can see, I need to click load charges. I've got my little red flags here. I can click on the $sign, that kind of stuff. And this help link also gives you an option to contact support. So if 6 months from now something happens, maybe you get a new piece of equipment and you're trying to add a calendar for it, but you can't quite remember how, you're missing some crucial step, you could send in calendar help, you could put in your question, you could even take a screenshot and add an attachment. And when you click that submit ticket button, it's going to open up a direct ticket to our support team. Any tickets that you have open will show up in the My Tickets section, which we have linked here, and any resolved or closed ones you'll be able to access using the tickets archive down there in the bottom left. Okay, excellent. So that's all I have to show you guys today. Your IA will be a resource to you up to 6 weeks after go live. So that's for most of you, that's me. I think there's 3 of you that had, I want to say Thomas. I could be incorrect about that. Is it Thomas? Okay, excellent. Yep. Thomas and I are both always happy to help. So if you have questions during that 6 weeks, over the next 6 weeks, please let us know. And then after that, we will have you transition to using support for any future questions or issues that may pop up.
Audrey, is there anything that needs to be shown for the kiosk feature?
Oh, I can definitely run through that. Let's see, do we have that turned on for your core? Oh, we do. Okay, excellent. So for those of you that are using the kiosk, let's run through that. So on the equipment tab, you as admin, you're going to have this more button. We do have that open equipment kiosk page that you can select. And what you're going to do is when you basically are ready for your users to use the kiosk to log in and out of your calendars, you want to provide them with this link up at the top. That 4-digit number that you're seeing in the middle there, that's going to be specific to your core. So this is specific to this test core. You'll notice if you log into your cores, you're going to see a different 4-digit number. And this URL will take them directly into this view. If you have them create pre-existing reservations, they will see that list here and they'll be able to start their sessions directly from here. If you allow walk-up sessions, the user is going to see be able to see the calendar up on the top left here. So maybe I want to create a walk-up session on the C-spinner. I'm going to go ahead and select that guy. This is going to show you if the calendar is currently open. You can see we're good to go. There was some stuff this morning, but right now we're completely open. I'm going to go ahead and click Create Session. Again, because we're in as an admin, we have, let's use Penelope. We have the option to create this on behalf of another person. And we can also indicate how long we're using this particular piece of equipment. So maybe I'm only using it for half hour. I'm going to click Create Session. Okay, this takes me into what's essentially a reservation details screen for the kiosk. It has some information on kind of when we're starting it at 3:43, so it's anticipated that we'll end around 4:13. We can put in that payment information, so there will be that drop-down box for your internal users. We can also see if there are different usage types. So, for example, we want the trained, but for some reason, maybe if the core staff, you guys are in the room and your user says, can I go ahead and walk in and do an assisted use option? You say yes, they could select that option instead. And this notes section is actually going to be the same as the event notes. So anything that they put in that event notes section is going to show, or sorry, in the notes section down at the bottom will show up in the event notes on the calendar interface. When I'm ready to actually start my session, there's this big green button up at the top left here. I'm going to click on that guy. It starts the clock, so I am now being charged for this session. If you have a computer that maybe is, or an iPad that is being shared by the lab for people to log in and out of Kiosk, I would highly recommend making sure they know to click this log out and use equipment button so that another user doesn't come up behind them and accidentally start a session on their name. If they're just logging in using a smartphone, that's really not as big of a concern. They can leave this page up the whole time, and then when they're ready to finish it, they can just click that blue finish button. There is an option to extend, so if they're coming towards the end of that half hour, realize they did not schedule enough time and they need to tack on some additional time, they can say, I want to go ahead and extend this by 15 minutes. Okay. And then you'll see it will update to indicate we probably have about 42 minutes left of our session. I am going to actually go ahead and go back to this All Reservations screen, and that's the one that we originally landed on. That is going to show us our current event that we created, that walk-up. We have kind of this little clock icon that'll show us our actual start time. And we have a kind of a 42 minutes left showing up. Oops, sorry. There we go. For under logged, it says 42 minutes left. When we actually finish the session, that will update to say the real end time. So maybe I'm done using this piece of equipment. There's a finish button, or there's that little triangle that's going to have those same options. Again, if I want to go back to that details page or want to extend my session, I'm going to go ahead and finish this guy. And you'll see I am still able to get into the details screen, but my little clock updates to let me know that I ended my session at 3:46. You as admins are going to be able to see everyone that has upcoming sessions here or walk-ups here. The user will only be able to see their own. So if I was logged in as Penelope, I would only see Penelope. I am in as an admin, but so if I had some for Sam or Claire or Bob, those would show up here as well. You do have a search, so if you easily wanted to pull up a specific event, you could start typing either a person or a resource. And there is an option to only look at a specific time period. So maybe I only want to see the next kind of 5 hours anticipated events coming up. I can use this little green guy to slide and control what events I'm going to see. Or you can also see completed sessions by toggling that on from here. So I can see actually I had something from Andy and another for Penelope. Okay, any questions about that?
If they've made an appointment through the regular calendar, does that show up for them on there, and then they can just log in from here?
It does. We can go through that really quickly. I'll click back to core here. And we'll go to the equipment. Misty, I'm going to use your big fiery machine here.
Be careful.
I love it. I like it when they have fun names. All of my personal test core stuff is all Batman themed.
Nice.
All right, so Penelope. And actually, I'm going to make this a little bit closer to, I'm going to change this a little bit. I want this to be close to, our start time to be close to now. So let's go there. Okay. So only the any upcoming ones within 24 hours will show up on that view, but we will now see in our kiosk page, we have our session for Penelope. Depending on your settings, there is a setting for how far in advance a user can create a session. So if you have it set for, say, half an hour at 3:30, since it starts at 4, she'll get that start button and she'll be able to start that session at that time. It's really similar. We'll click start. It takes us to that reservation detail screen and we'll see it does go ahead and start the time for us. If it is in the future, but maybe it's not within that 30-minute, oops, that's not what I meant to click. Sorry, guys. Go back to that kiosk. If maybe it's in the future, for example, this one, but it's not within that 30-minute window, which we've said they can start it early, they're still going to see their session coming up, but they're going to have a detail screen instead. They can't actually take action to start that particular session yet. Any other questions?
And this would be user specific, so they would log in and it would only be specific to appointments, or would anybody logging into the kiosk be able to see those appointments?
Only admin can see everyone's appointments, so it would be user specific. If I were to log in as Penelope, for example, I could only see Penelope's reservations.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, guys. I really appreciate you meeting with me. I hope this was a helpful refresher. Please feel free to reach out with any kind of specific questions on your cores. I know we kept this pretty high level. So if there's something you quite don't remember about, maybe something we set up for you guys, just let me know and I'd be happy to help.
Okay. Thank you very much, Audrey.
Thank you. My pleasure. Guys, enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Thank you. Will do. Bye.